Yeah, welcome to another episode of the Pick Six podcast and YouTube show. We are proud partners of Underdog Podcasts. You can't find it anywhere else other than Underdog Podcast, Apple iTunes, and YouTube, baby. It's youtube.com/The Underdog. Search for us. You're probably finding this, and most of the people listen to us thanks to some Facebook stuff. So welcome. Hope you like the show. You were listening. I am Sean. This other fella here with the Packers helmet behind him is Brad. Nice to meet you if this is our first time. Nice to meet you. Quick rundown of the show for all the newbies out there. So Brad and I have a podcast called Get Paid. It's a really good well, at least well-rated. I don't know if it's really good, but it's well-rated on iTunes. We've been doing it a year. I do some daily fantasy stuff. We do some gambling stuff, obviously. We do game-by-game previews, which you can see on this channel as well. It's all in the Week 6 playlist. So if you go to the Underdog, first of all, subscribe, obviously. Then go to the playlist and run through those game previews. They're usually like 2 to 3 minutes where we make the pick, kind of the first impressions of the week. Then we sit down, let it simmer, and then we pick our top 6 bets, and then I give you my top 6 daily fantasy budget plays if you're trying to find good bang for the buck. So anyway, that's enough of my spiel. Brad, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great, brother. It's good to be here, and hopefully we get to 6 picks today.
Yeah, we do. We have them. We have the 6 picks.
Yeah. Okay.
So
we're at 6 on the button.
On the button, yeah. I've come around. Actually, what we did. Well, I don't want to spoil anything in the show,
Okay.
but I came around on one of your picks. I'm not totally in agreement with it, but my computers, my analytics agree completely with you. You agree with it. I'm a little on the fence about it personally. I'm not going to wager my money on it, but that is one of our 6. So I came around to your side on one of them.
Beautiful.
So we have, we're recording this on Thursday before the Thursday night game, everybody. So we don't have any insight to the Patriots and the Giants. What I will say is after looking at the injury report, Brad, Evan Ingram's out, Sterling Shepard is out, Saquon Barkley is out, Wayne Gallman is out. It's only John Hillman at running back. Rhett Ellison will be filling in for Evan Ingram at tight end, and the receivers are basically going to be Slayton and Golden Tate. I don't see how New York moves the ball, but we'll see. That line is 17.5. Beforehand, I was kind of on the fence. I had it at 27-9, so I still favor New England. I'm a little bit more on New England's side. I think you're on New England, right? Or are you taking the Giants?
Yeah. I took the Giants because
you hate the big lines,
man. I hate the big lines. I just do.
Yeah,
and,
I don't. It's not like I'm putting money on this one. I mean, we'll make the picks and everything. I was 11-4. It's not like I bet on all 11 games. Thankfully, the ones that I picked, I didn't pick all 4 losses or something. We went 5-1 last week on the show. The pick 6. I was 11-4. I can't remember what you were, Brad. I can't remember if you were like. I thought you were closer to 500, but still profitable. But I know as a unit.
The first bet I took in a long time where I took a big favorite was last week, Kansas City. And I
didn't like that one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just matchup wise, and again, we're going to get into these games in just a sec, but again, for everybody new out there, I run analytics. I have 8 different engines running to basically come up with a composite. When I go back and check, and if there's like one team that every single of those engines is labeled a winner, then I consider that a computer lock. And I have several of those this week, but I also watch every single game in the NFL, and if something just doesn't jive, like for instance, Kansas City last week, it didn't jive because I liked the matchup for Indianapolis, I'll just take it off the board. It's not like I would bet against it or anything. I'll just take it off the board. So I usually identify those as well. But Brad, you want to dig into the first game, man? You want to get going?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's have at it.
All right, man. So actually, some of these lines, one line came into our favor, one line has moved away from us, but it hasn't impacted our picks. It's only been like a half point here or there. First game on our list is New Orleans +1 at Jacksonville. Brad and I are taking New Orleans. Brad, do you want to start with that one?
I think New Orleans, obviously I'm a Packer fan, and I think they're really good. Being Green Bay, but I think New Orleans might be just a very, very complete team,
Yeah.
And to go 3-0 with their backup, and I know he's a good backup, but nevertheless, they took out Drew Brees, and
Hall of Famer Drew Brees, right?
Hall of Famer Drew Brees, who's playing at a high level still, right? So they've gone 3-0 without him, and they have beaten Seattle in Seattle, mind you, right? Dallas, I believe.
Dallas, yes.
And was
Tampa Bay last week? Yeah.
Okay, and they beat Tampa Bay, who took out the Rams, and that they're not a dumpster fire by any means. So.
No. No, they can score.
That's where I'm coming from. Yeah, they can score, man, and the game's not too big for Teddy, so that matters.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so I look at the injury report, right? And first of all, this is one of those, you were talking earlier in the week about a couple of these games, and this is one of those when you see the lines come out, you're like, huh, really? Now, when I wrote down the score, I thought I was being clever, right? I thought the line would be, just based on how things were going, I thought the line would have been, New Orleans is on the road at Jacksonville. I would have guessed that the odds makers would have put that at New Orleans -3. When I wrote down the score, I thought I wrote down New Orleans 22, Jacksonville 20. Now, my computers are unanimous on New Orleans, so they like New Orleans a lot more than I do. I think this is going to be a closer game personally, but I was thinking that I was actually going to take Jacksonville in this before I wrote it, and then I saw it, and I was like, New Orleans +1. So, that to me means like the sports books. We were talking about this on Get Paid. The sports books are seeing something that we aren't seeing, and we have another game like this. I think the next one on our list, 2 games from now, and I'll bring this point up as well. It's one of those games that it's almost like the entire betting community, they're going to lay money on New Orleans, and this is just one of those things that, is Vegas really just trying to dupe us into taking New Orleans here? Do they think Jacksonville's going to win by a field goal? Are they trying to get all of our money?
Maybe, because that's what they do, right?
That is what they do. And that's why there's a reason if you go to Vegas, they have so many freaking awesome casinos there. It's because suckers like
buildings.
us.
I mean, listen, it's the perfect storm, really. Yeah. Like, when everybody gets so high on a team, that's usually when they falter, take a step back. We see it constantly.
Yeah, and you and I, Brad, for that reason, I actually thought, and you thought too, we both took Tampa. It was one of our losses. I think it was our only. No. We actually took Jacksonville last week to cover against Carolina, and then we took Tampa Bay to not get it. So we've actually reversed it on these two teams. We're going to take New Orleans this year, but it's just like one of those karma things. I'm wondering if really just the football betting gods are really just waiting to kick us in the balls, but. Probably.
Well, they're always waiting. They're
always waiting. They're always waiting to kick somebody in the nuts. Maybe it's going to be us this week. No, but I think I'm with you, though. I mean, I think that here's what Jacksonville's going to do. They're going to try to establish the run with Fournette, as they should. New Orleans has a strong run defense. To me, it's whether or not can Lattimore match up with DJ Chark, their huge 6'4" wide receiver who Gardner Minshew loves to throw to. I think Lattimore can shut him down. They just shut down, 6'9" Mike Evans, or however tall he is. Was he 6'6" or something like that? I think they can shut down the two primary weapons, so it's going to be a lot of D.D. Westbrook and Chris Conley, I think. I think Fournette will do okay, but I just don't see him doing enough to basically do this. Now, this could be the game that New Orleans falls flat. I do think it's coming. I just think that this week getting a point, that's too tantalizing for me to pass up, for us to pass up, really. My computers are there, so New Orleans it is. That's one of the 6. Next game on our list, Brad, we both like this one. This one is we both like all of them, right? Philadelphia +3 at Minnesota. Brad, you want to start?
Oh, I like this one a lot. And obviously we don't like Kirk Cousins. Kirk.
No, you don't like Kirk. I don't mind Kirk, but you know what? I liked him when he was in Washington. Him in Minnesota, there's just something off there, right? It's just... Yes, you've never been a fan. Yeah. You've always disliked Kirk Cousins. I like him. I think he has value, but once he got that big contract and like all the expectations that come with suddenly Kirk Cousins, he's just not such a nice story anymore,
Well, yeah, that's what bothers me. He's not the guy, He shouldn't be premiered as the guy. And he thinks he's the guy. I don't know. It's a personal thing, I think, and I think there's some tension with Stephon Diggs, and I don't think that's going to equal them playing very well. And Philly, I believe, is the real deal. They're going to be in the playoffs, I would have to assume.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I like Wentz.
Yeah, man, Wentz is good. I like Philly. My problem with Philly is that their passing defense is susceptible, but that's not Minnesota's strength right now. So this is going to be a game plan where Minnesota is going to basically have to throw for yardage. The interesting thing here is you mentioned Diggs. I actually think Diggs is going to get in the end zone this week. So if you're a daily fantasy player or fantasy player, I actually think he's a start this week. Analytically speaking, like I'm not talking about name value. I'm talking purely analytics. They like this matchup because Philadelphia, similar to Washington, but not as bad as Washington, Philadelphia gives yardage up to basically that secondary receiver. I do think that Diggs has himself a game this game, but I don't believe that Kirk Cousins can outduel Carson Wentz. I do think that Philadelphia is going to make it hard for Dalvin Cook. I don't think that you can shut down Dalvin Cook at this point, but you can slow him up. And
He's
I think
very excellent.
Yeah. So, like, Philadelphia is almost like New Orleans defensively to me. You know, they're both giving up a little bit more yardage than they had in previous seasons, but they're both formidable still against the run. I would say Philly's better against the run at this point than New Orleans is, but both very good. And, Carson Wentz, Philly to me is better than New Orleans, I think. But long term, when Breeze comes back, I think New Orleans will be the better team. But regardless, I think Philly is far and away better than Minnesota. I think that they lost 2 games basically because their entire pass catching, including tight ends, were injured. They had, they were picking guys up and like off the practice squad and starting them. So, when Alshon Jeffrey came back, they won 2 games in a row. Deshaun Jackson is still doubtful, but between Deshaun Jackson and Zach Ertz with Aguilar, I think Hollins is his name, and then they got Goddard. They're going to be fine. I think Miles Sanders in the screen game gets into the end zone this week. I like him a little bit more. But I just think matchup-wise, Philly, as good as Minnesota is, I love their defense. I love their talent, but Kirk Cousins is going to have to win this game, and I don't think he can do it against Philadelphia, who is, by the way, pretty familiar with him schematically because, what to do to frustrate him because of his time in Washington in that division. So Philadelphia getting 3 points and being the superior team with the superior quarterback and the superior coaching, in my opinion. But I love Zimmer. Don't get me wrong. I just think Peterson's just a little better. I'll take Philly. I like him in all 3 phases there. Next one on the list, Brad. One of these quote unquote Vegas trap games here. You had a nice segment when we did the Seattle versus Cleveland talk. You kind of flirted with the idea of taking Cleveland at Seattle minus 1.5 at Cleveland, but we're both taking Seattle. Let me start with this one. So Cleveland. Cleveland is at a point now where I've given up entirely on Freddie Kitchens' ability to get the most out of this team. Yeah. I'm not. This isn't a reaction to what we saw on Monday Night Football. Brad and I, if you watched this episode last week, we called it. We basically said exactly what was going to happen and laid out the script of this game. San Francisco's defensive line was too much to handle. Freddie Kitchens went away from the run. San Francisco ran, and that's it. That was the ball game, and that's what we saw. And this week, I think Seattle is a very similar team with a better quarterback. Maybe not as good of a defensive line, maybe not as good of a secondary, but I think that Seattle's run game, maybe not as good as San Francisco's, but strong. Russell Wilson is strong. The receivers for Seattle are better than Russell Wilson has ever had. I do think that Kitchens once again it just runs away from the running game. No pun intended there. If Seattle goes up a touchdown or 2 early, Chubb is going to end up with 15 carries and 90 yards, a 6-yard per carry average, and then not getting the ball enough. And for whatever reason, it drives me crazy. I have probably 10 videos on this out there this week. For some reason, when they want to go to the passing game, you want to abandon the run, fine. But it's not like you have to abandon the player. Nick Chubb is a weapon, dude. Get him out in space. Put him out. Line him up as a wide receiver, like the Rams did in years past with Todd Gurley. Get him out in the screen game. You can't dial up something interesting to get Chubb out in space. Come on, man. You got to do better than that. So when they get rid of him, then you can double up Odell Beckham. Then everything gets funneled over to Jarvis Landry. Baker Mayfield starts having to force things instead of let the game come to him. I just don't like the coaching staff. For Cleveland's sake, I think they need to make a change. But that's not going to happen for a few weeks or even towards the end of the season. So there you go. That's my take. What do you think, Brad?
I think the game is too big for
Freddie.
What the hell's his name there?
Freddie?
No,
Freddie.
Baker.
Baker?
I think the game is. Yeah. I think the game
you mean this
is
game
big.
or the game?
The game of football.
No way. Come on now. You're selling a Baker, are you?
I never bought Baker stock.
You're a tough guy to please with these quarterbacks. Haven't been a Green Bay fan and haven't walked into 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks your entire life. Okay.
Okay.
So
right.
this is to take everybody, the viewers out there, to take you back to the argument that we had, because I was if you notice this cup here, this Redskins cup. I don't consider myself a Redskins fan. At this point, I am a fan of the Get Paid podcast, so I vote for our bets regardless of I don't have any allegiance. Again, episodes on this. I'm not going to go into it. Long story short, Dan Snyder has ruined my love for the Washington Redskins. But there was a time in recent history where I did root for the Redskins, and they had Kirk Cousins, and I thought that the Redskins should have extended him for 15 to 20 million when they had the opportunity, and they bungled it. And Brad and I would have this argument, and I say, Brad, this is very easy because your whole freaking life you either had Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball. For the you younger Colts fans for a long time.
That's not true. For 2 weeks, I had Don Mikowski.
For 2
All right.
For 2 weeks.
So I know you paid.
Okay. Yeah. Whole 2 weeks. Those whole 2 weeks. Yeah. Don Mikowski, who in Tecmo Super Bowl, I think he's actually the starting quarterback there.
I bet he is.
Yeah. So no, and you young Colts fans who only know Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck before this Jacoby Brissett, who also, by the way, is good in my opinion, very good. There are franchises like, let's say, Chicago, for example, depending on your thoughts on Trubisky, Minnesota for years, outside of Culpepper. You could go work your way down the list. Detroit,
I don't think that Baker
before
Mayfield
Stafford
is a starting quarterback in 4 years' time.
So you don't think he'll start 4 years from now? You don't think he'll be a starter?
Maybe even less. I don't see it happening. I think he could be a great backup, man, but I don't think he's a big guy. I don't think he's got a great arm. I don't think he's got a good head about him. I don't know.
I don't know. I disagree. I mean, I kind of felt like that before he got drafted, and I came around on him. I'm very stubborn. I've come around on very few people. I do think he has it in him. I like the chip on the shoulder that he has, but I see your point. I do. I see your point, Brad. And
he played well against Baltimore. Every time I looked up, he was picking his moments.
I think he's
seeing clearly, but.
My whole thing with this, and people are dogging Baker Mayfield, and he's the way he acts and conducts himself in the media. He kind of leaves himself open to that kind of stuff, because he's polarizing and he likes to be provocative, and he loves the me versus you. Like he likes to motivate himself that way, and
I like that also.
Yeah, and I don't have a
bit
problem.
of a Kardashian though.
Yeah,
he's just famous for being Baker Mayfield.
I don't really dog him for that, though. It really doesn't bother me. Like, what bugged me, again, I'm going back to my Washington days. What bugged me about, RG3 is he was always, on social media, and, it always just seemed like there was just, everything had to be so freaking dramatic. I don't see that with Baker. I feel like he's making it a little bit more dramatic, but not for the attention. I just feel like he's just being himself. So I don't, personality-wise, I'm not too bad with it.
He is being himself. He's not fronting. Yeah. He's not putting on an act. But that being said, I don't like who he is. So
yeah,
to
each your own, and there's a lot of people that don't. I know all of Cleveland does. I think that he's good. I think that let me say this. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think what they need to do is give him some support, and the support that he needs is a nice run game and a better play caller, and I don't think Freddie Kitchens is it. My whole thing about Cleveland right now, as much as everybody's dumping on Baker Mayfield, and it's the same thing with the Rams right now. Everybody's dumping on Todd Gurley in the offensive line. It's the coaching, in my opinion, in both cases. Freddie Kitchens, and yes, Sean McVay. I know it's like, Sean McVay, you can't say anything about Sean McVay. But Sean McVay, I'm sorry, but Bill Belichick basically neutered him. I think he's walking. I don't think he can get. I don't think he can get an erection anymore. Truly. I think every time he's about ready to make love, he thinks of Bill Belichick just shutting him out in the first half, and he gets the shivers and just pulls the cover over his head. Maybe tomorrow, baby.
That's good.
I'm sorry. Seriously, ever since Bill Belichick was just hey, I'm the GOAT, he just walked around. Bill Belichick's prancing around, eating tin cans because he's the GOAT, brother.
He is the GOAT.
He's the GOAT.
Man.
You can't beat the freaking guy. I think I could, though. Let me say this. I think I could beat him. You give me, I don't want this job, but if you give me 20 hours a day and I worked 5 years straight and I had the talent, I think I could lock horns with that guy.
Okay.
Okay, no, I'm full of it. I'm full of it, but I like to think that I can. I
believe in you, Sean. You could do it. You could do anything.
Well, I feel like I could at least get 10 in the first half. You give me 10 in the first half, right?
Nah. He'd fuck you up.
He would. You're right. All right. You're right. I'm wrong. You're good looking. Yeah. I have a beard.
Yeah.
I'm bald. I hide it under my hat. I get it.
Glad you're coming around.
Yeah, you're right. Bill, he's so good. I hate him. He's so good. I hate him. So anyway, yeah, we're heavy on Seattle. It's nothing really to talk about there. What else we got? Next game, fourth game on our list. San Francisco. The line has shifted away from us. The San Francisco's 3 points. San Francisco +3 at the Rams. They were 3.5. We're taking the 49ers. Brad, you want to start?
Yeah, I think the 49ers look fantastic, man. They have a great running game, and Garoppolo is what, 14 as a starter or something like that.
I don't know.
It's something like
Slightly
11
worse than
2
Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, I think that team has really come around, man, and I'll be pulling for them regardless of whether or not I bet their way. I think, and plus we get a half point, don't we? We get that juicy
Not anymore.
half point.
It's down to 3.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Still, I dig it. What say you?
Yeah, I agree. I think the Rams win this in a squeaker, and only because I just have a hard time believing that the Rams are going to be 0-3 in their last 3. I just have a hard time believing it. But the San Francisco team matches up well with the Rams. They're going to be able to run the ball, like you said. I think they will have to pass, but Garoppolo is good enough to get the pass done. I do want to see this San Francisco 49ers receiving core. I like Deebo Samuel. I like Marquise Goodwin. Obviously, Kittle's great. And they're like 4 deep at running back. But I do think the Rams will get it done at home, but I think it's too close to the game. 3 points, I think it's too much. I think this is a 28-27, 30-28, just like we saw on Thursday night with the Rams last week. One way or another, the field goal is going to take it. So I think at worst, it's a push for us. That 3.5 was a little better because I thought that half point was, that was a slam dunk. But it makes me a little more anxious. But hey, it's still a field goal, so I feel okay. I don't know what else to say, really. I do think that McVay's going to figure it out. I have faith in him. Unlike Freddie Kitchens, I think McVay will figure it out. The offensive line, that's always stuff that you can figure out later in the season because they have two more new offensive linemen. Those guys have to gel. That takes a little bit of time. The starters weren't really playing a lot in the preseason, but I'm sick of saying that for the Rams. We're in week 6 now. They better get it going.
Right.
They better get it going.
Right.
But I do think the Rams will be 4-2. I do think they'll win, but it's going to be too close. 3 points is too much. I'll take San Francisco there. Next game, Brad, we have Sunday Night Football. This is the one I came around on. Pittsburgh is now +7. They were 6.5. Now it's a full touchdown at the Chargers. We're taking Pittsburgh. Now, I personally, my eyes tell me the Chargers will cover this game. But my computer is so far on the side of Pittsburgh and your Pittsburgh that we're going to go ahead and include it in this picks. I'm not personally wagering my money on this game like I will with the other ones, but this game is on our pick 6. It's an official pick 6 pick. I'm just not betting on it, so I want everybody out there to know. But Brad, why don't you talk about it because you feel a little bit more strongly about Pittsburgh in Los Angeles?
I wouldn't say I feel strongly. This might be my least favorite bet, to be honest.
Yeah.
I do think that Tomlin is a good coach, and I don't think they're going to get blown out. I don't feel like he's lost the locker room. I mean, do you think he has?
No.
Yeah. I think they can compete, and I think that the Chargers are a little bit chaotic and sporadic right now. So I think it can be competitive. I think 7 points is a little bit too much for my liking.
Yeah, 7 points is a lot, especially Pittsburgh has talent. It all comes down to how effective can Mason Rudolph be. I know he's coming off a concussion. I believe he's going to play. He's probably questionable. I haven't even checked in on that. Obviously, if it's a third-string quarterback, I would even go so far as to bet the Chargers if it's the third-string quarterback. But I want to see Pittsburgh involve James Conner more to open some more things up. That deep passing game. James Washington is out. Deontay Johnson, I think, is a great waiver pickup and play. I think Johnson has a chance to get a touchdown. I think Smith-Schuster will get in the end zone. I think it'll be a nice high-scoring game. I could see 30-20 Chargers. Honestly, wouldn't shock me if I saw 30-20 Steelers in this game. So 7 points, I'll take it and just roll the dice. But like I said, I'm not actually going to bet on it. Last game on the list for us, Brad, the 6th and final game, Monday Night Football. It is Detroit. The line has moved in our favor. It's now Detroit +4. At Green Bay. It was 4.5. Brad and I are taking Green Bay. You have a helmet over your right shoulder, Brad, stage left. Tell me about Green Bay, why they're going to beat Detroit.
I think it's about time that Green Bay puts one together. Offense, defense. Well, I mean, they actually did last week in Dallas.
Yeah.
And, the points that Dallas got at the end of that game, that wasn't real football. That was more like Green Bay trying not to, just kill the clock, and you know how it gets weird, right? But when it came down to playing, they dominated that game, and I think they get a little better this week. And at home on a Monday night, I think they make it happen.
Yeah. I think that, Detroit coming off the bye week, I'm not super comfortable with that. But, the Lambeau Monday night thing, Aaron Rodgers, I don't think that they've gotten the run game and the pass game going all at the same time. Like, you see Jones went off last week, but Rodgers didn't have the great. I think they'll do it. I know Devontae Adams is questionable at this point. If he plays, I think he's going to have a nice game. I agree with you. I think they're going to be able to put it together. And so there's really not much more for me to say about that. No disrespect to Detroit. I like what Detroit's doing. They had a hell of a game against Kansas City before the bye week, so we know what they are. We know what they can play. But I like that this Packers team can play defense and can run the ball. So I'm a lot higher than I have been on the Packers in recent seasons. So that's all good. So Brad, I think I'm going to go quickly over the Pick Six daily fantasy budget plays real quick. I don't know if you have any teasers that you like. If you don't, that's cool. But I'm going to go through the Pick Six for it. So quarterback, I do one quarterback, two running backs, two receivers, and a tight end. My quarterback this week is Gardner Minshew at plus 5,000. Playing New Orleans, I think he actually has a nice game. I think he'll be able to move the pocket, scramble a little bit. I also think he'll be able to hit DJ Chark for a touchdown or two. Even though, yes, we are taking New Orleans in that game, I do think Gardner Minshew has a nice game. And also, it's a little out of order here, but DJ Chark is 5,500. Look, dude, this guy's 6'4". He puts up big numbers every week. Buy him. He's a great value there. Running back on my list, Williams from Kansas City. For something, I'm thinking D'Angelo. It's not D'Angelo. It's, Damian, for crying out loud. Damian Williams at 4,800. I think is good. I think, he got back in there last week. LaShawn McCoy was nowhere to be seen. He is the running back. He had a target in the end zone. He'll get in the end zone this week, I think, against Houston. It's going to be a high-scoring game. 4,800 in the Kansas City offense for a guy that draws passing targets from Mahomes. 4,800, I'll take it. Miles Sanders at 4,200. Philadelphia playing Minnesota. I think he'll be utilized in the screen game. I think Miles Sanders gets in the end zone. While I still think Jordan Howard gets more of the short yardage and the goal line carries, I think Miles Sanders finds the end zone this week. 4,200. I will take that as a bargain play. Sutton from wide receivers now from Denver at 5,000. I have him projected to get 1 to 2 touchdowns in his game against Tennessee. That is pending Emmanuel Sanders. If Emmanuel Sanders doesn't play, I don't feel as good. Cortland Sutton needs Emmanuel Sanders to play to open some things up for him. So I'm assuming as Sanders is in, I like Cortland Sutton, who, by the way, is also questionable. I mentioned Chark. And then Seals Jones, tight end, Cleveland. I like him. Cleveland, they're playing Seattle. Seattle's been diced up by tight ends all season. If Freddie Kitchens can do his job and find the opportunity in this offense, we know he's going to have Baker Mayfield throwing the ball. Seals Jones has already come down, I believe, with a touchdown in his short stint with Cleveland. This could go to Demetrius Harris, but I think Seals Jones is my better candidate to get a touchdown, find the end zone. And he's only at 3,300. So there's a whole list of budget plays. If you do want the full list of my score projections, if you play daily fantasy, I highly suggest it. There's a link an email address. It's functionalsportsaholic@gmail.com. Just check the show notes. It's going to be below in the description, so you can check it out there. And then that takes me through that. Brad, do you have any teasers, or do you not like anything this week?
The teasers will return next week.
Okay.
And when they're juicy and fried.
Yeah, there's no. Sometimes the best bet to make is the bet you don't make, as I say sometimes. So
right.
If there's no value out there, then there's no sense in forcing our way into it. No sense in forcing our way into a bet like Freddie Kitchens is forcing his way into a pass-heavy offense, right? Mm-hmm. There you go. Okay, so that's another episode. That's the Pick Six. Go out, make some bets, get paid.